Now, James, I wanted to ask you about Juneteenth.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Juneteenth.
Yeah, Juneteenth, that's when we can commemorate the Republicans freeing the Democrats' slaves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So first of all, what is Juneteenth?
Juneteenth is a celebration on June 19th. It celebrates, commemorates when the message arrived at Galveston, Texas, which was the last holdout of the Civil War, that the slaves had been freed, that the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed. So it is actually, it's become a political and racialized thing because, of course, Joe Biden has done so. I had actually Adam B. Coleman, the very interesting writer and thinker on my show, The U.S. Report, on Friday night, and he said, actually, this really should be taken above and outside politics and actually be looked at as like, another sort of almost Independence Day, because it's a part of this great sort of enfranchisement of everybody in America. And there's something to be said for that. But the holiday itself has become a very sort of, separatist thing in recent years, and especially since Joe Biden, turned it into what I think is a very pandering kind of event. Now, the other interesting thing about that is, of course, as the Democrats pander to black voters in the United States, black voters have been more and more breaking away. It certainly did under Trump from that sort of Democrat
yeah, but still,
message.
It's undeniable that vote is the most solid, consistent vote for the Democrats. And even as unhappy as they may be with this current administration, or the fact that Trump did get a few of them going across, few percentage points, it's something like 9 out of 10 African-American voters vote Democrat. And and you look at those Democrat-run cities that have been Democrat-run.
But here's the interesting thing about that, Rita.
And they are absolutely in disarray. This is a vote that the Democrats take for granted.
They do take for granted. But then if you start to look at a state like Illinois, where you've got Chicago, which is an absolute mess. Now, the other week on this program, we played clips of residents of Chicago furious about the migration issue, the sanctuary city issue, and of course there's all the crime and everything else. Now, on the one hand, Chicago just elected an even worse mayor than Lori Lightfoot, if that's possible. On the other hand, though, if you look at the electoral totals for all of Illinois, if you have enough of even a small break in that vote in a place like Chicago, suddenly the electoral math for a big state like Illinois starts to change.
Well, if only we had an American we could get to join us in this conversation and shed some... Oh, hang on, we do. There he is, Ari Horowitz. Great to see you, as always. We've just been talking about Juneteenth. So give us your thoughts on what that is. Biden made it a national holiday. I gather there was quite a lot of violence over the course of the day. What did it mean? What's its significance to Americans?
It's so interesting. I actually just recently shot a video, haven't released it yet, on Juneteenth, where I asked white folks, it's a preview. You guys are hearing a preview prior to release.
Excellent. This is what we like, Army. This is what we expect. Yeah, exclusivity.
Absolutely.
Carry on.
I asked white leftists, hey, is it racist that American white people didn't know what Juneteenth was a couple of years ago, right? This is kind of just really, obviously it has been a thing for many, many years, but it only became part of the public consciousness a couple of years ago. And of course, they all said it's racist, that white people don't know about it because of the American supremacy embedded in our educational system, on and on and on and on. And then, of course, I went to Crenshaw, South Central Los Angeles, and I asked black people, I said, did you know what Juneteenth was 2 years ago? And of all the people I asked, one person knew what it was a couple of years ago. They all said, we had no idea what it was. What are you talking about? I would think a third of them didn't know what it was today.
Fantastic. Good. Well, I think, as always, Army, you've answered that beautifully. Rita.
Well, I'm interested in your take on the Biden family and these charges, what we can expect to see next. Do you think this is actually going to have an impact on Biden's chances in 2024, or is he going to remain protected by the intelligence agencies, the Justice Department, FBI, and so on?
Well, more importantly, it's going to be protected by the media, right? That's the most important organ of the Democratic Party, that they're keeping this out of the mainstream news. And in fact, more than just keeping out of it, when they do discuss it, the entire discussion is about how crazy right-wingers think this is an actual issue, right? It's the exact opposite of Russia, Russia, Russia. where a hoax was created and they kept it burning alive. In this case, we have something that might be real. Look, we don't know exactly what the relationship between Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, but we have some ideas that seem worth investigating. That's kind of the bottom line here, right? When you have a WhatsApp message, which, by the way, shows how stupid Hunter Biden is, and how there's collusion going on. But when you have Hunter Biden sending a WhatsApp message shaking down a Chinese businessman, saying that that Joe Biden's dad is sitting in the room, and this is literally in a WhatsApp message, that both of them will literally go after him and ruin his life if he doesn't send $100,000 in cash in the next 24 hours. It sounds like a shakedown out of like a Staten Island Italian Mafia. It's crazy. Yeah, this is not covered by the media. It's insane.
Yeah, but Ami, like, just before we played some grabs from the latest press conferences with Karine Jean-Pierre, I'm starting to get a sense that some of the media, at least, is starting to break. And I've seen some conversations on, Meet the Press and some other places that they're saying this actually is starting to become too big to ignore. What do you rate the chances, Ami, that at some point all of this just starts to weigh too much on the Democrats and they say, hey, let's get a Gavin Newsom or somebody like in there, among other things, to get that first mover advantage of having a younger candidate in when you've got presumably a much older Trump running for the Republicans?
I'm not a mathematician, but is there a number that's less than zero?
Good answer.
They will. This may be a U.S. reference that you guys don't get, but they will weekend and Bernie him before they decide to switch horses in midstream. They're not going to do it. Look, he's got the presidential advantage. And outside of Donald Trump losing, and that was primarily because of coronavirus, presidents very, very, very rarely lose. It's a massive advantage to have. They are going to milk it for what they got. And the reason is they're going to do that is because they don't have any bench. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Gavin Newsom, but do you really want people digging into Gavin Newsom? How you think? Look, he's basically a better looking version of Hunter Biden.
Oh, no.
The amount of dirt you have in that guy is incredible. But he's really, you mentioned his name only because he's the only real option they have.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the one who would come in and really win if they were able to convince this person to run and she would walk away with a win is Michelle Obama. That's the only person, and we don't know if she really wants it. I think she does want it, but I don't know if she's willing to do that right now. So yeah, I don't think any of this yet has come to a tipping point where they're saying we got to flip and we got to change horses in midstream.
Army, just go back to the sunken submarine. A couple of things that have kind of leapt out from the tragedy there. One was that the CEO who did perish had spoken previously in a kind of woke way about not having old white men working on it or something like this, which seems an interesting take on diversity and inclusion and so on. The other thing is the allegations that the Navy and James Cameron and others all knew that the vessel had sunk on Monday. Back to your point about the media and James's point running cover for the Biden administration, why on earth did it take 5 days for the Navy or the White House to admit that the Navy knew that the thing had sunk?
I would like to think there's a perfectly reasonable and innocent explanation on why they sat on this for so long. I'd like to think that was because they didn't know definitively, and they certainly didn't want to release that information. They didn't have definitive proof that they were all dead. I would like to think that. I hope that's true. I can't imagine that they would hold on to this to keep it in the news in order to displace, this is what some people are saying, I don't necessarily believe it, but in order to displace the Hunter Biden news and that this was dominating the news coverage and Hunter Biden took second place to it, I would like to hope and think that that wasn't the case, and I don't think that it was. It is odd. I mean, James Cameron said very early on that once he heard that they had that implosion sound, he knew exactly that was the perishing and the death, unfortunately, the people on board. And talk about famous last words. God, it is unfortunate. Those were unfortunate words that they dug up about him. But it goes back to those words you hear all the time and the sentiment you hear about people all the time when it comes to diversity in sensitive areas like pilots or doctors. If you want somebody who you think is a diversity hire flying your plane or working on surgery, and this just kind of highlights that because they met their end. And obviously we don't know it's because of improper, personnel in dealing with this. But obviously, those words echo very loudly over the tragedy of what happened with that.
Absolutely. Ari Horowitz, always great to chat to you. And yes, you would be horrified to think that the White House was that cynical, but I got the inkling that way in the back of your mind there, you wouldn't be surprised if you did find out that that were the case. But maybe I'm just putting thoughts into your head, Ari, and heaven forbid I should ever do that.